Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the Chillin with Chase podcast, the MMA edition, a little bit of pro wrestling sprinkled in there, and some YouTube boxing. Oh man, I don't know if I really want to talk about this, especially with what I saw this morning. You know, I've been wanting to avoid talking about Anderson Silva and Jake Paul because Anderson Silva holds a special place in my heart. I'm one of the biggest fans of Anderson Silva. He was one of the people that made me fall in love with mixed martial arts. I always remember before the Chael Sonnen fight, I met Anderson Silva at the X Games. And it was one of the coolest experiences that I ever had as a fan. And he was just so nice. And this was like Anderson Silva, I don't even think he understood what I was asking him to do or saying. And I remember this was like before like iPhones and everything were like super popular. Like not everyone had an iPhone. Like if you had an iPhone back then, it was like, oh my God, you have an iPhone? You're crazy. Nowadays, it's just like everyone has them. Everyone has these smartphones. Everyone has these computers in their pockets. But back then I had a flip phone and it died as I was trying to ask Anderson Silva if I could get a picture on the flip phone. But he was super nice. And I just remember thanking him and saying, hey, you know, I can't wait till you beat Chael Sonnen. So Anderson Silva holds a special place in my heart. And it just hurts me a little bit that I might see him take a dive to Jake Paul. I just might. Who knows? Anyways, let's talk about something happy for once. Let's talk about UFC 280 that happened this past Saturday. Boy, what a card. What an interesting card that was. I was wrong on some things about that card. If you guys don't know, True Hill Heat Sports. We do live streams on there. We also live react to the UFC shows and pay-per-views. So if you ever want to join in with the live chat, please check them out on YouTube, True Hill Heat Sports, and check out their mother channel, True Hill Heat, for professional wrestling. Sometimes I make appearances on there. But a lot of times, if you guys want to know my initial reactions to UFC, it's on there. And we had the Chase Oliver parlay. And, you know, this event, I really wanted to go with a lot of underdogs. I was actually feeling one underdog that we'll talk about here later. But I decided against it. I went with the smart pick, and it bit me in the ass. Only two of my picks hit. Firo and Aljamain Sterling. Everyone else, they just let me down. And it was really, really embarrassing. Really, really embarrassing on my part. But sometimes you have those rough nights, especially when you choose betting. Gamble responsibly, folks. That's all I got to say about that. The fights, though, were very, very interesting. The main event, Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev. I called them hand-me-downs. I called them hand-me-downs because I felt that he was being handed everything that Khabib left. And man, he earned his name, Islam Makhachev. The pedigree of the Dagestanians. I think I need to just stop choosing against Dagestanians. I feel like if you're from that Dagestanian camp, I'm just going to choose you to win from now on because, man, Charles Oliveira looked good. And that's how good Islam Makhachev looked. He looked better. There was something that Islam did where Charles just did not want to go forward anymore because Charles loves being on his back. And so my thing about this fight was Charles is not going to be afraid of the takedown from Islam Makhachev because Charles Oliveira likes being on his back. He loves doing the groundwork. He loves that kind of style fight. This favors everything about Charles Oliveira. But something about Islam Makhachev, when he was on top of him, and if any of you guys ever wrestled before, you guys know what I'm talking about. When someone just gets on top of you, and you're just like down there, and you're just like, oh my God, you just know you're going to lose. There's been times where I've wrestled someone, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, this guy just feels strong and heavy. Something about this guy, he is a beast. So that's what Islam Makhachev, he probably had this weird pressure that Charles Oliveira could not believe existed. He was saying, there's no way this exists. And Charles Oliveira wasn't as aggressive as he was in his previous 3 title fights. And that's what ultimately cost him his UFC lightweight championship. The champion now has a new name, Charles. It's Islam Makhachev. Islam had a really, really good win, and he absolutely earned it. And we also got a shout out Khabib Heyman over here, fellas. Let's give it up for Khabib Nurmagomedov. He knows Islam's English is still a work in progress. He doesn't know what he's necessarily saying. Like he has like a thought, but he doesn't know how to process that thought into English. So when he says certain trash talk phrases, it just doesn't come off as bad. So, you know, Khabib, he did him a solid. He texted his buddy DC. He said, "Hey, when Islam wins, after you ask him about winning, ask me a question." And DC did that solid for Habib. Habib talked about how he was proud to see Islam as champion, and everyone was talking about how we fought the best in our backyard and that we should have went to Brazil. But guess what, guys? We want to face the pound for pound number one in their backyard. So we want to go to Perth, Australia, bring Volkanovski inside this cage. What a great job by Habib. Habib learned, being the promoter for Eagle FC, this guy learned how to promote. He knew what he was saying. And then Islam came in and he started going, "Yeah, where's this little guy? I can't see him. He's so tall." And Habib, you could just see him like, "Calm down, brother, calm down. No, you don't need to say these words. Let me talk for you." Like you're like just saying, "Islam, calm down." But Islam versus Volkanovski in February in Australia is currently planned. Fingers crossed that does happen. It'll be interesting to see what the backup fight will be if none of these two men can go. Because sometimes these Australian cards, something wacky always happens. Something wacky happens. Remember Robert Whittaker? Twice he had to pull out of an Australian card. So something always wacky happens with these Australian cards. So that's what I'm saying. I hope it goes down, because Volk versus Islam is a very, very interesting matchup. I think Volkanovski has been on an amazing run. But man, Islam Makhachev, just something about him, man, that I was wrong about. I totally missed on what this guy can do. And like I said, I'm done picking against the Dagestanian crew. The Bantamweight Championship. The Funk Master Aljamain Sterling absolutely demolished TJ Dillashaw. I'm interested to see what the scorecards was. I didn't even Google the scorecards or look them up. I wonder if we got any 10-7s. I feel like there should have been some 10-7s in there, because TJ Dillashaw had no offense. And there was the news that came out that TJ Dillashaw actually entered this fight with a hurt shoulder. Like, it was separated this whole time, and he knew it was separated. And he didn't even reach out to the UFC doctors and be like, "Hey guys, yeah, I hate to break it to you. My shoulder's separated. I don't think I can make this fight." There's plenty of bantamweights. They had a bantamweight fight on this card that they could have replaced TJ Dillashaw from. I'm pretty sure Corey Sandhagen would have taken the call if he would have been available. I'm pretty sure he would have taken that fight. Cheeto Vera, I'm pretty sure, could have taken this fight. Like, this was something that was very interesting. Like, why did TJ Dillashaw not just tell the UFC doctors? It was almost like he kind of knew in the back of his head, this is my only shot I'm going to get at this title ever again. And if I drop this shot, man, and I tell people, bantamweight is the murderer rows division. If you're a fighter in the UFC and you fight in the bantamweight division, just know, if you were in any other division, you most likely would be top 5. That's just how good the bantamweight division is. If you just look at the top 10 of the bantamweight division, you're just like, oh my goodness, that is just crazy. I mean, the guy who fought the number one contender, Petr Yan, Sugar Show, Sean O'Malley, he was ranked 11. Sean O'Malley was ranked 11 coming in tonight into the Saturday night's event. And he took on number 1. That just shows the strength of the bantamweight division and how good that division is. So there's no shame in TJ Dillashaw wanting to take this title fight. I get it. Hey, look, you pull out of this, it's not like you're guaranteed to get the next shot. You'll probably have to fight one of these murderers, and probably Cheeto Vera, who's been the Undertaker for all these old people. You're a veteran UFC fighter. Cheeto Vera's been taking you out, unless your name is Jose Aldo Jr. But TJ Dillashaw decided to fight hurt, and that's on him. Aljamain Sterling dominated. He is and still the UFC bantamweight champion. And this leads to who's next for Aljamain Sterling. I mean, he left some options. He called out Henry Cejudo, who he called Henry Cejudo. He called out Sugar Sean O'Malley. I forgot his nickname for Sugar Sean O'Malley. It wasn't good. The worst, though, is when he called Cheeto Vera Cheetos. I was just like, oh, man. Like, I don't know who's writing Aljamain Sterling's promos. Matt Serra, maybe you had to give up the trash talking. But that was just bad. That was just bad by Aljamain Sterling. Just those promos. But Sterling has a lot of options. And he's going to be one of those guys that's going to be tough to stop. He's a bigger bantamweight. His offensive wrestling is just insane. Like, he's just super good offensively as a wrestler. very strong on the ground. Like it's just like I feel like Aljamain Sterling. Like once he gets on top of you, it's like pretty much a wrap. Because if you turn your back, he's going to try to get you with that rear naked choke. And then if you just let him stay on top of you, he's going to control you the whole fight. And he's going to just whack you with hammer fists and elbows and short hooks. Like he just knows what he's doing on the ground. Very, very underrated ground fighter is Aljamain Sterling. And that's why I was choosing Aljamain Sterling in this fight. Because I said, man, TJ Dillashaw, I know that TJ Dillashaw came from like Team Alpha Male and that wrestling based place, and that everyone's saying, oh, he's probably a better wrestler than Aljamain Sterling, but Aljamain Sterling is just a different level of wrestler. Like there's levels to this, and Aljamain Sterling is just a level above TJ Dillashaw and also in his prime. It seems like Aljamain Sterling has a lot of options, and his number one option is probably who won the last fight in a controversial way. Sugar Sean O'Malley and Petr Yan had one of the best UFC fights you'll ever see. Very, very fun fight. And this fight answered a lot of questions for Sean O'Malley. Because before this fight, Sean O'Malley, like great talker, casual, friendly. He does his job. But no one was ever feeling like this guy is a contender in the UFC because his last few fights, he hasn't looked as tough. When he faces against, the tomato cans, quote unquote, he beats them easily. He looks good. But then when he fought like Cheeto Vera, and then his most recent fight, he just didn't look good. He just honestly did not look good whatsoever. He looked hesitant. He looked like he did not even want to be in that fight last time. So then when you see that, and he wins off an eye poke against Pedro Munoz, he wins off an eye poke, like it just because like the eye, like it was a no contest. It was like, okay, well, what's next for Sugar Show? Like I know Pedro Munoz, he didn't really spark him up or anything, and Munoz really, to be honest, was kind of winning that fight if the way you were judging it. What's next for Sugar Sean O'Malley? And then all of a sudden they give him Petr Yan, who everyone is saying is the boogeyman of bantamweight division. A lot of people love Petr Yan, one of the best boxers in mixed martial arts. They gave him Petr Yan, and you thought, oh man, Yan's just going to destroy the Sugar Show. But Sean O'Malley was very confident in this matchup. In fact, years ago, he was calling out Petr Yan, saying, oh yeah, everyone's afraid of this guy. Well, I'm not afraid of him. And this was before Petr Yan was Petr Yan. This was before, like, when Petr Yan was beating up some old people, and everyone was like, oh, this guy's going to kill every single one in the bantamweight division. No one's going to take that belt away from him. And then he cost himself the belt, and we all know what happened, the rematch with Aljo. So this fight right here, Petr Yan, he looked human in a little bit in that first round, and Sean O'Malley was fighting a home with that right hook. He was fighting a home. Petr Yan decided to go wrestle, and the first round was really, really close. A really, really close round. And I saw where some people were saying that, hey, Sean O'Malley dominated the first round, in some aspect on the feet. Petr Yan had to go to wrestling, and when Yan did take him down, no significant damage was thrown, which is true. But Yan did control most of that fight, because one of the things a lot of people forget is octagon control. And octagon control is pretty much controlling how you move in the octagon. And O'Malley was backing up the whole time. Petr Yan wasn't. Petr Yan was being the aggressor. That normally helps with the points. So some people gave the first round to Sean O'Malley, but other people, they said, hey, Petr Yan won based off of just what I saw. This has also been a problem with Petr Yan, though, is that he seems to be a slow starter. He doesn't seem like someone that kicks into gear right away. It takes a round, maybe two, for him to finally get going, or once he gets cracked really good, then Petr Yan starts to become like Petr Yan. And we saw that in the second round where O'Malley started tagging him, and it looked like, oh my God, Sean O'Malley figured out how to get to Petr Yan. He's much bigger, much more lengthier, so of course he's going to get to Petr Yan. And then Yan decided, oh, all right, you want to go? Bam! Hit him with a nice right hook, took Sean O'Malley down. And then that was like, second round was all Petr Yan. That was vintage Petr Yan. You said this was it. Sean O'Malley, great job, man. You had a little success in the first round, but Yan's winning. You need a finish. And then Sean O'Malley had a really good response, a really good third round, coming back almost, just destroying Petr Yan in that round. Yan got some takedowns in there, but O'Malley did the most damage, opened up a cut on Yan, was just fighting. It just looked so good. That was a good round for the Sugar Show. And that was one of those like fights that if Sean O'Malley, even though he did win via a controversial split decision, but if he didn't, that's one of those fights where the hardcore fans that are so angry at the casual fans' favorite fighters. That's one of those fights where you say, you know what, man, respect. O'Malley, we don't know if you're going to be a champion, but we know you ain't going to be in a boring fight, and we know you're going to be tough. And that's always a good win, and especially for Sean O'Malley's age and where his career trajectory is. Like Sean O'Malley, still very young in the sport. Like Sean O'Malley still has a good career trajectory, even if he loses this fight. Him winning is just a bonus. Him winning speeds up the trajectory. And that's exactly what happened. Now Sean O'Malley has a huge, significant win under his belt. And it'll be interesting to see how he takes this momentum. Because this was almost like McGregor and Chad Mendes, where Chad Mendes was pretty much winning the whole fight, but McGregor got the KO win. And that was like the fight where a lot of people who doubted McGregor's overall skill was like, yeah, this guy's really good. Does O'Malley feed off the confidence that, hey, I went against the boogeyman of the bantamweight division. I went 3 rounds. I made this guy bleed. Corey Sandhagen and Petr Yan for 5 rounds were going at it really, really hard, and Sandhagen couldn't even cut this guy. Sean O'Malley, he wasn't bleeding. That was all Petr Yan's blood on the Sugar Show. He got a couple of nicks and knacks, but that was all of his blood that was on him was Petr Yan's. So it's going to be interesting to see where this goes for the Sugar Show. I am very interested to see with that. Beneil Dariush also picked up a huge win over Gamrot. And I almost feel bad for Beneil Dariush because, like, he's a good fighter. It's just that marketability-wise, the UFC is kind of like, you're not the best marketable-wise. And Dariush kind of understands that, hey, I'm going to have to fight these guys anyways. I might as well fight them. He knows that the 3 Stooges, as I like to call them, Poirier, Chandler, and Gaethje, they ain't fighting him anytime soon. Like Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, and Justin Gaethje, they know where they're at in their careers. It's either a title or a Conor McGregor fight. They do not care about anything else unless it's a big-time money fight. Because that right there is what these guys feed off of. That's pretty much like they've been there before. They seen the money fights, especially Poirier. Poirier got 2 of them things. Michael Chandler, he wants one of those things, and he's seen the money from the title fights. And Justin Gaethje, title fights. And they'll most likely only fight each other because they're all 3 like same star level names. So it's like, oh yeah, if they lose to each other, it's not that bad, and they beat each other, it's not that bad. It's the 3 Stooges, as I call them. So they're not going to fight anyone else but each other. So this led to Dariush. He's kind of in a weird situation. I mean, Charles Oliveira losing helps him. If Oliveira is ready to go to Brazil, which it seems like he is, it will be Dariush versus Oliveira, which would be a really, really fun fight. Dariush has even said that he wouldn't mind facing Rafael Fiziev, which very respectable that he would actually challenge someone below him. I mean, he did fight Gamrot, who is below him, but that seemed more of like Dariush accepted the fight, saying, yeah, I'll accept this fight. But him actually challenging Fiziev, and that guy right there, we haven't really talked much about him. He seems like a nice little killer prospect in the UFC lightweight division. Can that division get any more stacked? Golly. Crazy division. But it'll be interesting to see Dariush versus Charles Oliveira in Brazil. I think that would be a really, really good fight, especially for those two. And I think Oliveira would not say no to that because he really wants to get back to title contention. That's the beauty thing about Islam being champion. Islam has a really interesting roadmap where he fights Volkanovski, and then he has the rematch with Oliveira, or he fights Dariush, or he fights one of the 3 Stooges. And we all know, just because of his relation with Khabib, Conor McGregor is going to find a way to get a title shot. Uncle Dana is going to let him do one more cycle. Conor gets one more cycle. Uncle Dana's like, all right, hurry up, do your cycle, do your 6 months of testing so you can come back in next year in December. That's what we're just waiting for. We're waiting for the cycle to happen for Conor McGregor. Get that one last cycle, and then you can come back in December. Who knows? We'll see. But the UFC 280 was a really, really good card. Worth the pay-per-view price and a lot of good, interesting fights. Now let's talk about some pro wrestling. WWE Halloween Havoc, actually NXT Halloween Havoc, excuse me, happened this past Saturday. And I'm just going to say this, man. I've never seen a more forgettable show. I'm just being honest when I say this. I did not feel like I should have made time this Saturday to watch this show. Now, were the matches good? Yes, there were some good matches. But what I mean by a forgettable show is a year from now, I don't think you could ask me one thing like, Chase, do you remember what happened at Halloween Havoc 2022? And I'll literally draw a blank. I'll probably have to think what the main event was, what the featured match was, what was like the most interesting part about that show. And I feel like that's an issue with like NXT, that they can't recapture that same magic that they used to have with the takeovers. Because with the takeovers, they used to have this crazy magic where those shows were fun and memorable. And these shows, I don't know why, they just feel like they're just regular NXT shows, but we added more stuff to the entrance ramp. Well, you're gonna see some more hardcore matches tonight. That's how it feels watching some of these new NXT specials. They don't feel like actual specials anymore. They just feel like, oh, this is a good episode of NXT. And when you're paying for, the Peacock service, and granted, it's only $5, but when you're paying, you would think like, oh man, this will have to blow you away. The show didn't really blow me away. It didn't move me. Some of the matches were good. I don't know if I'll ever go back and watch any of them. I don't think like that's on my mind. I'm not saying, oh yeah, you know what? Let me go turn on Roxanne Perez versus Cora Jade. I don't think that will ever hit my mind. I mean, did they have a good match? Yeah, those ladies went out there and they killed it. I felt Julius Creed's stock rose from Halloween Havoc because he looked good as a singles wrestler. I was like, okay, I'm high on Julius Creed. I like Julius Creed a lot. I think Creed is one of those guys that is just going to explode for the WWE. He just screams WWE main eventer. And I felt that this match with Damon Kemp was like, hey, like Julius Creed, let's see what you can do as a singles guy. Let's see how you are as a singles wrestler. We're still going to keep you in Diamond Mine. We still want you with your brother, but we really want to see, like, can you get that good singles match out of you? And he did. I felt like mission accomplished there for Julius Creed. Those were my two highlights. The rest of the stuff was either like, okay, I know it's good, but there's something missing, or I just didn't care. Apollo Crews versus Grayson Waller. Didn't care. The whole equalizer gimmick, a casket match. Well, what is this? The way it ended, the false finish, it was just goofy. The women's championship match. Now they had like a fun little segment where Mandy Rose and Toxic Attraction, they wanted to go find Iba Fire, so they went to her haunted house and they were all getting picked off one by one. It felt like an episode of Scooby-Doo. Like, Scooby in the game, we're trying to find like the monster, but the monsters just keep picking off Scooby in the game one by one. It was like the reverse. They didn't actually capture the monster. No, instead Mandy Rose got captured. Alba Fire kidnapped Mandy Rose and drove her back to the CWC. Why doesn't she do more damage before doing that? Like you already have her like rocked. Go ahead, use that bat a couple more times. If you're gonna have Alba Fire do all this weird stuff, might as well just use the bat. I mean, Chucky's there. Couldn't Chucky attack Mandy Rose? I'm not sure. I felt there was a missed opportunity here with the women's championship match, and the match itself was, just the typical like, oh well, the babyface win. Nah, the heel wins, and we're upset. Oh my God. Oh, the reign continued. Like another JBL win for Mandy Rose. Remember when JBL was champion? Maybe some of you guys are a little bit younger. You guys didn't watch that title reign, but JBL had that 2004 title reign. And it was just like he would win in the most stupid ways, like the most BS ways. Like it was just like, oh, that clothesline from hell would hit out nowhere and he would win. That's what Mandy Rose is whenever she hits her V trigger. She hits her V trigger and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, she won. LOL, Mandy wins. And it's fine. They're doing a good job. They're trying to build up for when Mandy finally loses. It's a big deal. And she has improved greatly in the ring, for sure. It's just more of like, with all the campiness in the beginning with the haunted house and everything. You would think like, Alba Fire would do more damage, right? I don't know. Then, the ladder match, that was fine. It's typical, like what you expect from ladder matches. Wesley won the North American title. Triple H continues his trend of booking, like, I'll book you to lose all the time. You'll lose all the time. But don't worry. When the big match happens, you're going to win. Because no one's going to remember when you were losing. They're only going to remember when you win big. That's like Triple H's biggest flaw as a booker. He always does this. He'll make these guys lose all these matches, and then they'll have this rationale where it's like, oh, well, you won't remember what happened on these random episodes of NXT. You always remember when they won the title. That's what Triple H does. That's what he does as a booker. It's so annoying. Because Wesley was just like this guy. He lost almost everyone that was in this ladder match. I think he even lost to Von Wagner. Like, Von Wagner beat this guy on an episode of NXT. Like, come on. And we're going to sit here and pretend now. We're just going to sit here and be like, oh, yeah, he's a winner because he won the ladder match. Interesting stuff. Well, yeah, he is a winner. He's now the North American champion. The triple threat match was good. It was a good main event. My only complaint about this match was NXT decided to hype up Austin Theory cashing in on the NXT championship. Yeah, that's right. Mr. Money in the Bank cashing in on the NXT championship. He ain't cashing in on the bloodline. He ain't cashing in on our tribal chief. So he'll cash in on Baby Steiner. So I was watching just like, okay, when's this cashing going to happen? And see, this is where foreshadowing is important, people. This is why foreshadowing is important. Because I'm sitting here and I'm expecting a cash-in, or at least an attempt. But I got none of that. Instead, I got a good triple threat that could have served as an NXT show main event, and nothing happened besides Braun Breaker winning. Nothing changed. Nothing different happened. Braun Breaker won. Okay, fine. But what was the point of foreshadowing Austin Theory? Oh, well, Chase, you got to watch Tuesday now. You got to see if people... No. You foreshadowed Austin Theory. You foreshadowed him as being the guy that's going to cash in his Money in the Bank for this event, especially with these three guys. This would be the best time for him to decide to cash in if he wanted to cash in. And instead, we didn't even get that. We didn't even get a tease of a cash in or him failing, keep up the shtick that, A-Town hits and then he just fails. No. Instead, nothing. It was just a good wrestling match, a good triple threat. And to me, that's just bad execution. Just because the match is good does not forgive bad foreshadowing. Can you imagine, like, if you were watching Dragon Ball Z and, like, you saw Frieza and you're like, oh, shoot, this guy, he must be up to no good. And all of a sudden, instead of Goku fighting Frieza at Planet Namek, he just kicks the Ginyu Squad's ass and Frieza's like, ho, 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 I don't want to fight you anymore, Saiyan, and just ran away. You'd be like, then why did they show this guy? What was the point? What was the point of showing Frieza this whole time? No, for real. What was the point? Because now you showed Frieza, and we ain't getting anything. He ain't even gonna fight. That's how it felt with Austin Theory. I was like, what was the point of showing Austin Theory trying to cash in if he ain't even gonna try? So it kind of ruined the match a little bit for me. I know everyone's gonna say, "Oh, Chase, that's nitpicky." No, it's just called execution. Maybe I'm a little bit nitpicky when it comes to a fake sport like professional wrestling, but I like execution sometimes. I'm interested to see what this GCW and WWE thing is. It's very interesting. Ariel Helwani, after he attacked the AEW fans, calling them freakazoids, which was probably one of the most interesting insults I've heard in quite some time from a wrestling journalist or MMA journalist, I should say. Interesting call. I like it. It was funny. The AEW fans, they embraced it too. They love it. Now they call themselves freakazoids. It's great. But he said, I'm gonna watch some real wrestling in GCW. Once he tweeted that, I was like, okay, GCW and WWE, there gotta be some relationship. I didn't even know Brett Lauderdale and Stephanie McMahon were friends like that. I was just like, oh man, that's crazy. Brett Lauderdale and Stephanie McMahon, they're friends? Interesting. Speaking of interesting, the last topic I'll talk about to this podcast is CM Punk potential contract buyout with All Elite Wrestling. CM Punk, he's old, he's tired, and he works with a bunch of children. Well, no more. AEW is looking to buy out CM Punk, and one of the things that's probably holding it back is a non-compete clause. They don't want CM Punk to, go on and head to the Fed. They're like, oh, no, Punk, we'll pay you, but we want to make sure it takes time for you before you can come back. Because here's the thing. Time may not heal all wounds in professional wrestling, but pettiness is always keen in professional wrestling. Like that's the one thing being a professional wrestling fan I've just learned. Pettiness is like the number one thing. These wrestlers are the most petty human beings, and if they can get one up on anyone, they will do it. They will absolutely do it. So I can see AEW why they're just like waiting. They're like saying, okay, we don't want to buy out his contract, especially if there's no non-compete clause. Because hurt tricep or not, CM Punk will find a way to go to the WWE. He will find a way. Him and Triple H will find a common ground. Triple H will say, hey, I'll give you a part-time schedule. I don't care. I know we have had our differences. He'll give the usual Triple H spiel. He will understand that, hey, me and Punk have differences. But guess what? I can one-up Tony. And CM Punk is going to say, I can one-up that dumb company and I can show him how you do effing business. Because that's not what CM Punk's mad about. He felt he was leaving an unprofessional environment like the WWE, and he was going to AEW, and it was different. A happy place, like, oh yeah, everyone loves everyone here. It's a kumbaya. And I don't know, CM Punk didn't feel any kumbaya there. He felt everything he was trying to do was being undermined. You had guys that didn't want to respect him. He was trying to give advice, and a lot of them didn't take his advice. He had EVPs that felt like they were trying to sabotage him more than help him. So he was upset. He has every right to be upset. And I find it interesting that AEW is, I get it. You got to get rid of CM Punk. Fine. But what makes the elite excluded from this? And people are going to say, oh, well, they started a company. That's fine. But they also started this situation with one of your top draws. They're the reason why CM Punk decided after All Out, when he was tired and hungry, to go ahead and eat some Mindy's Bakery cupcakes and rant on the elite and pretty much say how they're nothing but spoiled children. To me personally, and I'm just saying, Tony Khan should have not only punished CM Punk, but he should also punish the elite. Now, maybe the elite lose their EVP positions, which probably would be for the best, but who knows? But all I know is this. CM Punk and AEW was a very, very fun ride while it lasted. Very fun ride. Interesting ride. And it ended in the way that I feel like a lot of us thought it would end. Because there was a lot of people that I would talk to. I'd be like, how do you feel about Punk and AEW? They're like, I'm liking it, but I'm always worried how it's going to end. Because I feel like everyone kind of knew, like, yeah, if this is going to end, CM Punk is going to be angry. It's going to be CM Punk leaving on his own terms or CM Punk being upset about something. Because that's just how CM Punk is. Minus Ring of Honor. Every other company he's worked for, he's left angry. Ring of Honor, he left, pretty much on somewhat good terms. Yeah, he left on good terms from what I remember. I mean, they booked a whole angle about him leaving. So, yeah, he left on good terms. I haven't heard anything that he left on bad terms there. But everywhere else, he left on bad terms. He left because he was angry. So, it's interesting to see what will happen next. But I can't wait. I can't wait to hear when CM Punk gets bought out and if there is a non-compete clause. I am very interested. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of the Chillin' with Chase podcast. I appreciate you guys listening to this podcast, whether it was on youtube.com or Spotify. If you guys have time, hit the like button, hit the follow button, subscribe to both feeds. Follow me on Twitter at ChaseAuger68 and leave a nice comment down below if you can. Give me your thoughts on any of the topics that I talked about. I'll be back soon with another edition of Chillin' with Chase. And remember, guys, just like our former returning Universal Champion, Brock Lesnar, sometimes you don't have to give a shit in life. Yow.